My name is Eric Labby, and this is a recording of a talk I gave at the New York Hall of Science. It's called Exploring Khan Academy and Common Core Math using Mappr. Hope you enjoy it.
The Common Core standards in mathematics were adopted by a majority of the states, including New York. My perception is that the Common Core standards are wildly misunderstood, and I hope to clear up some of that today. We're going to look at math through the lens of modeling. Not this kind of modeling, or this kind of modeling, more like this kind of modeling. The periodic table of elements are a very famous representation of naturally occurring phenomena. What's so powerful about the periodic table is that there are multiple mathematical entry points to the representation. And you can find what you're looking for rather easily, even though there are many complex ideas embedded within. Suffice to say, the periodic table is powerful, and representations like this endure because they synthesize very complex ideas, but also they can be reimagined fairly easily because they are so complex. Here's another illustration of the periodic table of elements, this one developed by Akko Muradjan in 2001, based on a mathematical approach developed in the 1920s. Now, I can't say that this representation, which is more symmetrical in nature, is going to help us understand chemistry better, and that's certainly not the point of this talk today, but it can definitely appeal to more spatially oriented learners. And more importantly, it drives home the point that there are no fixed models for how we represent the world around us. We're able to make sense of models like the periodic table of elements because we've been exposed to models throughout our entire lives, specifically in our roles as early mathematicians. I'm here to talk about math education, and since we are at Big Data Fest, I thought we should first explore a first grade Common Core math standard. Now I'm going to read the standard. This is Measurement and Data Standard number 2. Express the length of an object as a whole number of length units by laying multiple copies of a shorter object, the length unit, end to end, to understand that the length measurement of an object is the number of the same size length units that span it with no gaps or overlaps. Limit to context where the object being measured is spanned by a whole number of length units with no gaps or overlaps. Now that's a first grade math standard, and no wonder we didn't fall instantly in love with the Common Core. Now Khan Academy is a website that's been developed by Sal Khan and a number of other folks on his team, and where you can access Common Core aligned lessons. And we're going to take a look at a lesson, Measuring Lengths 1, as well as a link to a video about this particular math standard and a lesson that aligns to it. So this is the example of Measuring Lengths 1, and you can see that there's an exercise where it asks you which picture shows how to measure the length of a drawing. And then it also asks you for the length and the number of squares. Now, if you're a parent and you wanted to understand this math standard, you can also take a look at this video, which is Measuring a Golden Statue. And there's some sound I'm not going to play for it, but essentially it gives you a lesson about how you can think about measuring in a first grade math kind of way. What's really exciting is that you can make connections to a Common Core standard by taking a look at a video resource that matches up to it. And it's really important in education to be able to make connections between an area of in the next progression as well as a more foundational skill. And Khan Academy is one way for you to do that. But you know, that's not really the end of all this. There's been some really great work in mathematics education over the last couple of years, aligning the work to mathematical progressions to the Common Core language. Now this is a link to, this is linked from a progressions document developed by the Institute for Mathematics and Education, which basically shows on the left-hand side the grade, the standard, and the notable connections between that standard and the previous standard. Now, this isn't really that, I love the work of Bill McCallum and his group over there at the University of Arizona, but this isn't really an accessible document for parents like you. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to go to my Mappr and give you a more accessible representation of the kindergarten through third grade categorical data work standards. Yes, we are at Big Data Fest, so I'm talking about data work that your kindergarten, first grader, second grader, third grader is expected to do through the lens of the Common Core math standards. So if we take a look at, now this is Mappr, I take a look at this lesson, which is measuring lengths 1, and there are connections that can be made from that lesson to other math standards. Now, notably, there are 6 connections that can be made within, 7 connections that are being made from measuring length 1 to other lessons just 2 degrees away. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a network science terminology, and we all know 6 degrees of separation with Kevin Bacon. Well, this is 2 degrees of separation to the next math lesson, going from measuring length 1 to other math lessons. What's really exciting about a tool like Mappr is that you can hover over a math lesson and get a sense of the Common Core standard that aligns to it. And all of these lessons are also linked to Khan Academy lessons. So that's a really exciting way. Now, earlier I showed you this table. Now, I'm going to just highlight for you only the standards that are linked in that particular table, which are the purple standards, purple for progression. And now, when I look at all the lessons in my Khan Academy network, there are 32 more lessons. So I've basically gone up by 133% the amount of lessons that are linked from the progressions document. So Mappr is a really exciting way to look at math standards. And math lessons. So you can see that if you hover over, you can get a sense of that math lesson. What is Mappr? Mappr is an interactive data visualization tool, cloud-based visualization tool that allows you to visualize complex networks on the browser. It uses a network science approach as its core. It helps you to discover relationships in the data and share interactive data stories on the web. So all these things that I'm showing you here today are accessible through your browser. Now, I promised you that I would talk about modeling. And what happens is that in most of the examples in high school modeling problems have to do with problems of time and money. So what's really exciting is that when you model a problem, they mostly have to do with real live occurring situations. And it just happens to be that in New York State tends to care a lot about time and money and test students on it. And I don't think that's a bad thing. So here's an example of a problem on the August 2014 New York State Regents exam in algebra, which if the current policy paradigm persists, most of your students will have to take that exam or a Common Core aligned math exam to pass high school. And I don't think that's a bad thing. So this is an example where Edith, presumably is a student, has 2 jobs but can only work they can only work up to 15 hours a week, but needs to earn more than $80 or more. And so this is an example of a math problem that requires students to model a problem, to create a system of equations, to graph, and then to state the ideal combination of hours that you need to work at both jobs in order to also have enough time to do your schoolwork and make enough money. These are real-world problems. So here is an example of how a student goes about solving the problem correctly. We're not going to go through that much. So here's another couple of problems that you see on the Common Core Algebra Regents. This is a typical compound interest and a compound penalty problem that occurs on the math Regents. Whereas question 26, and these occurred on different exams, asks the student to write the formula for the compound interest problem. But then question 15 asks the student to see where the function intercepts the y-axis. So it requires students to have a sort of a deep knowledge of not just solving an equation or coming up with an equation, but also having a deeper knowledge to be able to model it in a different context. So like I'm wearing this shirt, right? It has it's like kind of like graph paper. So it's going to require the student to actually put onto graph paper and think about it from a different perspective, rather than a rote learning perspective where you're just spitting out the answer. So 26 is a question that requires you to know the formula, but 15 gives you the formula, but it requires you to apply it and interpret it. And that's what big data and that's what modeling is all about. It's about taking a real world situation and applying it and interpreting it into different contexts, also to solve problems, but more importantly, it requires students to be flexible in the way that their brain works, and I think that's great. So now we're going to get meta a little bit. What I'm about to show you is a network of 128 Khan Academy lessons, 117 of which are aligned to Common Core learning standards. And these standards were drawn from another progressions document that came out of the University of Arizona. But they did not, in that document, organize the progressions in a way that they did in the K through 3 document. So even harder for a lay person like you, or a person who's not involved in education, to understand. Now, the way that this network diagram is drawn is using a force-directed layout algorithm, which is basically an intuitive approach for how we think about things that are related or unrelated in the world. So things that are related, lessons that are related kind of cluster together, and lessons that are not related kind of repel from each other. And the size of the node in the network is the number of links that are attached to that node in particular. And we're going to hone in on a standard that's related to all the problems that we saw. And so we're going to take a look at that real quick. So we're going to go to my Mappr. And so this is a network of modeling skills in mathematics. Again, developed by the Institute for Mathematics Education and a network that I got from Khan Academy. And so I'm going to go back to my Mappr. And all these nodes are different lessons. And the colors represent a domain in mathematics, in Common Core mathematics. So I'm going to click on this node, which is solving equations in terms of a variable. And if I click on that, what happens here in the sidebar is I get more information about that particular math standard. And we can see it has a degree of 5, so relatively high in the network, and is related to 5 other lessons. And so we can also then scroll down. There's more information about what this standard is kind of about. So you see an image of a problem, and then it gives you some network analytics down here. And then you can also click on nodes that are related to it in the network and get more details about it. And then you can always go and click on that, and to see how that fits in the overall network of modeling skills in high school mathematics. So now we're going to take one last look. Now I don't know, are you guys all hungry for the food web?
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to take a look at the food web, which is now the full network of mathematics on Khan Academy. And so you can see that math lessons and domains tend to cluster among each other. And you can also look at it by difficulty, and you can sort it by different areas, and the number of Common Core standards that align into it in particular. So we can see that the Interest in Statistics lesson has a lot of Common Core standards aligned to it, but it's sort of in the middle in terms of level of difficulty. And if I go back to my old map before, the network of modeling skills, we can also see it sorted by grade level. So we see that a lot of modeling skills happen in high school, but there are some modeling skills that happen all the way back in kindergarten. And that's according to the University of Arizona's progressions document. So I hope what here today was to sort of get you oriented, for you to not be so afraid of the Common Core, because to help you make connections. Now, if you want to learn more about this data visualization tool, you can go to mappr.io, and what .io stands for is eye-opening, and that's for you. And here are my citations, and I'll take any questions if I have time. Thank you very much.